RPGs, RPGs, RPGs. Who's going to talk about RPGs? It's the Titterpigs. And now it's time for the Titterpigs, the tabletop RPG podcast. So, am I getting paid for this? Or?
Hey everybody, welcome back to Titterpigs. What is this? What episode are we on, Scott? 600, 6, 5, 4?
I thought we weren't going to script this out. I have no fucking clue what episode we're on.
All right, I think this is episode 6.
And thankfully, saying the F word within the first 60 seconds on a podcast does not get you demonetized. Now, we would need to be monetized to begin with, but at least we don't have to worry about that if we were.
Well, that's good because we're not monetized, so perfect. All right, hey, anyways, welcome back to Titterpigs. I believe this is episode 6. It's been a while since Scott and I have been together in the studio across the country, but we're still in the studio together. First off, we'd like to say thank you to everybody who listened to us in 2021. We really appreciate you being along for the journey with us. It was a fun ride.
Absolutely. No, I mean, it's been somewhat amazing just seeing the amount of input we've been getting since we started, this tomfoolery that we call a podcast, and the support from, quite a large variety of people. And just all in all, it's been beyond the expectations of, what I was even considering to be when we were, fiddling around with the idea. So yes, thank you. And thank you. And
let me clarify Scott's point about all those, the people. Thank you to all 6 people that have listened to all of our episodes. Thank you, all 6 of you. Mom, Dad.
Right.
So, anyways, thank you to everybody. You
and
guys have been
of
amazing.
course, and of course, Bud, who's listening just to make sure we're not saying anything bad about him. That's the only reason why he listens to the end. So
yeah, true story.
But anyway, so 2022. We've survived another turn around the sun. We've gone into this wonderful new year with absolutely no issues, no problems. It's just sunshine and rainbows from here on out. And oh wait, sorry, that's the wrong script.
No, you need to put that script away. Let's get to the real script we wrote.
But yeah, so it's with that. As you mentioned, we've been busy. It's been the holidays. And so kind of what we've done in other aspects when we've getting together, and it's been a while, we just take a moment to see what have we been up to? And, what do we do during the holidays? What have we got coming up in the, in the immediate future? And just, have a little discussion about that. So, Keith, how was your holidays?
Thanks for asking. No, my holidays were good. I got to spend some quality non-COVID time with my family, my in-laws, my granddaughter, both my boys. The COVID came right after Christmas with everybody except me, apparently.
Right.
My immediate family, so that was good, but I had to get COVID tested, so that was not fun. That being said, I didn't get a lot of Christmas gifts this year that were game-related. I got some tchotchke stuff, which is always fun. Got a new dice tray and things like that. But I think the best Christmas gift I got this year was when my 10-year-old granddaughter asked me to teach her to play Dungeons and Dragons. So I think I win this year.
That's fantastic. I mean, the
Can
enjoyment
you tell I'm
of
still
your
beaming. I loved it. It's the best. It's fantastic.
It's the enjoyment of your children, and of course your grandchildren, are the gift that tends to keep on giving. Not necessarily the 2 Christmas presents you failed to mention that I got you, but anyways, moving on.
I was getting there, but
fine. Talk about your grandchildren first,
well,
and then
course.
we'll talk. So, anyways, I stepped on your toes.
No, it's all good. But I would like to thank Scott.
That's me.
That would be you, and some of our other fine feathered friends for their nice role playing game gifts this year. So that I have some nice new books on my shelf. Scott got me a nice copy of Nephilim. That was fantastic. That is a game I played in the 90s. I had been looking for a copy after Seller's Remorse, so that's nice to get.
Right.
So that is actually, in the last episode, Scott mentioned some things you guys can look forward to in 2022. That is going to be one of the things we are going to talk about in a future episode. Now that we both have copies of it, we're going to talk about it and see if it lives up to Keith's expectations and remembrances of playing it in the mid-90s. So,
right, a deep dive. So get your dark black trench coat out, Keith. And we'll like I mentioned, we'll see who can remember being the biggest edgelord.
Yeah, I don't know. 90s. We're gonna have to see who wins. Maybe our all 6 of our listeners will have to vote. And then Scott got me a DCC Lankmar box set, so that is fantastic.
Right. Technically, how it went was I did get you the box set. Was primarily for the Christmas present, but this Nephilim thing came up. It's the original print as mentioned, and like most things, there's just a ridiculous amount of collector pricing. But this one was well within reason. In fact, it was less expensive than the reprint on drive-through. So
wow, that's fantastic.
Just had to grab that, and it arrived late. So that's because it came from Canada. So that was kind of like the big thing. But yeah, so no, great. I'm looking forward to that. I'm not looking forward to reading it because I paged through it. It's a bit hard on these old eyes, but
True story.
I do have reader glasses now, so I'll be utilizing those to.
Yeah. So what'd you get over the holidays?
Well, I think I made out like a bandit this year. I did receive from you. I did receive several copies of the Baker Street RPG, which was the core book and some supplements and adventures, along with the Sherlock die, I think it's called, or whatever it's called, which is the dice is up there on my collector shelf where it needs to stay, otherwise it'll be lost in the bag of dice. I did receive there were some wonderful gifts from Pookie and Neve, and then also from my wife. Well, I should say my wife and family. I did receive the complete box set of Chaosium's Horror on the Orient Express for 7th edition.
Right.
The Kickstarter box set, absolutely complete. Everything is in there. It's looks virtually unused. I mean, obviously it was open and used to a certain degree because the what's the little puzzle man called? The
simulacrum?
The simulacrum was in pieces, whereas if I remember correctly, it originally would be in like a little punch board that you would punch the pieces out or something. But everything's in there and it's in fantastic shape. Hopefully, if my current Call of Cthulhu players ever make their way out of New York in my Masks game 5 years from now, we might pick that up next if we
good luck with that.
Masks. Yeah, exactly. But that aside, yeah, it's my son who is a gamer himself. He received a lot of gamer adjacent presents that technically are his, but do fall into stuff that Daddy can use if it's available. He received a very nice and generous gift from my dad, his grandfather, a huge amount of old Dragon magazines that him and his D&D
Some of those
club.
were cool. I love those covers.
Oh yeah, and I don't know if it was they just threw in it but there was a couple old White Dwarfs that were in there on top of it, and then also some of the best of volumes 1, 2, and 3 of the Dragon magazine. So it's just this huge lot, and I've been thumbing through some of them. He's looked at some of them himself and taken them to his D&D club, but it's a wealth of information too, and also nostalgia. I mean, I'm looking at magazines that I actually bought off the shelf and read, and and all those one thing. Mm-hmm.
I remember thumbing through that one. Yeah. That was a trip down memory lane.
Oh, it is, and it may be something and that could be a subject also farther down the road. The Dragon magazines, Dungeon magazines. Just we can have a segment of we're old and we love our nostalgia, so piss off or something like that. We'll work on the name.
Yeah, we'll figure it out. Yeah,
but yeah, so that's pretty much it. I mean, there might be a little couple things here or there, but those were the highlights from my Christmas gaming wise.
Nice.
So.
Other than your on again, off again Masks game, have you been able to get any gaming in?
Yeah, so they're still continuing on with the Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, which we'll just call Ash or Hyperborea from now on, since they've kind of changed the title.
God, you're such an asshole.
I know, I'm a giant asshole. Which got a couple of those games in. Now those were predicated on some people had gotten sick too, so there was a couple cancellations here and there, and of course the holidays.
Right.
But that's going on. Good Lord, I want to say this is well over our second year. So this is literally the longest running campaign that I've been involved in.
Sweet baby Jesus.
With the same people involved,
Wow.
which is another cool
I'm
thing.
jealous.
And still enjoying it. I mean, an absolute blast. And for those who may know him, this is run by Andy Markham, and who runs a fantastic game. Some of you may have played in his AD&D game and his DCC game and any of his other games, and you know those that know him know he's a great guy. But and aside from that, let's see here. And we our ongoing RuneQuest.
Right.
That we were able to squeeze in a couple. So with your playing in.
Yep.
So I don't know if I'm forgetting something, forgive me, but those are the ones that kind of float to the top that I recall.
Yeah, I think that's the RuneQuest, squeezing in sessions of Impossible Landscapes. That's really...
Oh, duh.
Yeah. I mean, those are really the only two I've been able to squeeze in over the holidays, just because, I mean, even though I had all that time off in December, I really didn't get a whole lot of gaming in. Although I did a lot of reading and wrote a lot of reviews. Not as much as Pookie writes, but I wrote a lot.
Any particular one kind of comes to the foreground of the reviews that you did that you liked so far? Because I know you did. You've been, kind of prolific in the reviews and the amount of reading that you've been just kind of
cranking out. Man, I read so much. For the most part, I like Apoc Thulu's new supplement, Terrible New Worlds, for kind of fully fleshed, kind of canon breaking campaigns.
Okay.
Two of which I really, really liked. One is kind of outside of my gaming comfort zone.
Right.
Because of the subject matter. Not to say that it's bad. I think it's actually got a lot of potential. It's just, it's not for me.
Right.
And the other was a little sandboxy, but yet quite railroady. It would be really great for first-time players.
Okay.
And a first-time handler, I think that would do really well with that.
Nothing wrong with that.
No, not at all. Just again, it's not something that I need. If I were to expand on it myself and do a little heavy lifting, it could be really good too. So
right,
and it's not to say that it's bad. So I thought that was really good. I'm currently reading. I read Planar Compass 2 and wrote a review for that. Long story short, good stuff. Didn't like the layout. Meh.
Right.
But the content was really solid. Currently reading Occam's Razor from Stygian Fox. I'm just about done. I think I got about 3 pages left. And then I can start hacking out my review of that.
Okay.
What else I've gotten recently for reviews? Maganomia from Shoestone Press.
Okay.
Elizabethan era courtly magic, so it's historical fantasy.
Right.
Quite interesting, kind of on the same lines of Desanction, but the book is literally almost 400 pages, so it's on steroids. And it's fate-based.
So the exact opposite of
the polar
Desanction.
opposite of a 52-page book or 60-page book. Yeah, exactly.
Right.
It holds a lot of potential because I mean, me and some of the listeners that have been listening for a while know that I like historical topics. So
right,
yeah. So yeah, I've been
Fantastic.
neck deep in reading stuff when I can. Currently, as we're recording this, work's a little chaotic right now. I'm temporarily got promoted, so I got to do that kind of stuff. So it's kind of forced me to kind of scale back some of my gaming and some of my reading. But it is what it is.
Right. So yeah, that's kind of falls into a bit of aside what have we been up to, but what are we looking forward to? I know that your work situation is kind of thrown a spanner into some of that.
Yeah, true story.
But that aside, so that sounds like we've may have touched base on how our holidays went. Kind of what we've been involved in, what we've accomplished. The wonderful presents that we've gotten from all sorts of people and whatnot. And so that brings us into the new year. I think you and I both probably had a very casual New Year's Eve. Nothing, no drama, nothing to write home about, I would imagine.
Nah, pretty mellow. I slept through it.
Yeah. Oh, yes. You can see my, as soon as you said that, I think I just saw another brown hair of my beard turn gray.
Yeah, because we're old. We're old.
But,
so Scott, it's 20. So as we're recording this, it is 2022. So
yes.
For the next 3 months, right? So for the first quarter, maybe into the second quarter of the year, what are you looking forward to playing, running? What's getting your mental juices flowing?
Right. Well, one thing I'm looking forward to, briefly, which was touched upon, is continuing on with my Masks of Nyarlathotep campaign. and which has kind of hit several snags. They're still stuck in New York. They have been for some time. They've been playing this almost like in completionist mode, so I need to kind of pull up my big boy, GM pants, and not necessarily railroad them, but try to kind of give them a little subtle nudge to like, hey, this campaign is going to take us 4 years if you continue down this road. So,
right.
But we've got a couple new players coming in, which is great because we had one fall out.
Fresh meat.
So yes, fresh meat, and so I'm looking forward to that, and I'm definitely looking forward to get out in New York so I can start using the other damn props that I paid money for too.
Nice.
So because they've pretty much used them all up. That aside, I think the 500-pound gorilla in the room that I have that I'm looking forward to that hopefully you'll be involved in is my up-and-coming game of Night Below. Over the holidays, Fantasy Grounds had a sale, and one of the things that was for sale was their version, well, not their version, but their Night Below campaign that they've made compatible for the Fantasy Grounds software, which I had already owned their version of the AD&D compendium, the second edition rules, Dungeon Master's Guide, all the other stuff that I had picked up over time when they had other sales. Never got around to use it, but Night Below is another big campaign like Masks, a famous one.
I've never played it, and I've owned it 3 times, and I've never played it. So.
You've owned it 3 times.
I've owned it 3 times, and I've sold it 3 times.
Bastard.
I still don't know. I don't own a copy now, though.
So I'm looking forward to that. I mean, you and I, we've been involved in discussions. We've talked with a couple other people. There are players in that. With Pookie and Neve. I kind of have my coach, in Bud.
Yep.
Who's there being,
he's our subject matter expert.
Oh, yeah, and all things Night Below and AD&D second edition. And for those of you who are kind of going, why second edition, Scott? There's so many other rule sets out there that
why
you can
not?
Utilize. But like old school essentials and whatnot, which I would say yes. I would say absolutely 100% yes, there are.
I did ask that question, by the way, because I wanted to use old school essentials.
Right. The primary reason is because since all the rules and every aspect of second edition is automatically baked in, so when all you guys really need to do is just click a button, that's the primary reason why. It's having everything there at the ready for you guys to do whatever the heck you want, but having to use the second edition rule set, or me having to recreate the wheel, so to speak, and then we're essentially doing Night Below, but then I'm having to add. Generally speaking, it's not much, but it's just, any conversion, it's still extra work.
Right.
And I wanted to focus on just the campaign itself and not have to worry too much about the rules and Fantasy Grounds in its current status with everything there at the ready. All I need to do is just prepare for the campaign. I don't have to worry about doing
I'm cool with that. I'd rather you focus on the story and the narrative. We can just hit a button. I mean, I grew up playing second edition, so a lot of it's going to come. I haven't played it in 20 years, but a lot of it will come flooding back to me in terms of this does that and that modifier applies. So a lot of that stuff will come back to me, but hey, I'm invested. I bought a reprint of the Player's Handbook because, well, if I'm going to play a game, I got to own the damn book. So,
It's come
You're
to find
welcome,
out
Watsy.
As most everyone else did too, which was great.
Yeah, you're welcome, Watsy.
And I rediscovered it myself. I mean, I don't want to go too far off a tangent, but I did start rereading the second edition, the original Player's Handbook. With the
blue writing,
with the guy writing, the guy riding on the horse through the canyon or whatever it is. And I forgot how. I mean, maybe wonderfully is the wrong term, but it is a very simple and easy read. There's not a lot of bloat. There's not a lot of additional over explanation within it. It's a straight rule set with good artwork, but a minor amount that's not, taking your focus off of.
I used to be able to
itself.
cite pages in that book.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, on page 79, there's this, or I need this, and it's on X page. So
right.
Yeah, I had that thing committed to memory at one point in my life.
And the font, it's almost like they knew we were going to get older.
Yes,
it's still an easy read. I don't need my glasses for it. So it's been a joy to venture back into that. So
I'm looking forward to it. Me and my wild mage, we're looking forward to it.
Yes, and we did a little test run on the wild magic table today, and you rolled up. You randomly polymorph.
I told you my wild mage is going to be soft and squishy until I polymorph into a fucking hamster.
So I mean, hopefully, in regards to your availability, with work and everything, and things turn out that I know, not going to pretend like, you're going to be there 100% of the time, but at least your involvement is enough to where we'll be able to touch base and highlight it every once in a while on the podcast on how the Night Below is going.
Yeah. I'd also like to highlight this coming year, my adventures of gaming with a 10-year-old girl with my granddaughter.
Yes.
I won't be bringing her on the podcast, but I will be highlighting my adventures as I teach her the game and the ropes.
And with that comes wonderful 10-year-old insights on things, which is always a joy to hear.
Yeah, we ran our first session last weekend because we're going to play every other weekend when she's at the house. And we played last weekend, and that was an eye-opener for this old guy. And I loved it. I loved every minute of it.
That's great.
And she woke me up at 6:30 the next morning and asked me to start going. I'm like, not till I have my coffee, sweetheart.
Yeah.
So, because she wanted to keep playing, so it was great.
Fantastic. So, and kind of within the time span you mentioned, one more quick thing that I'm looking forward to is near the end of next month, I'm going to be going to Strategicon. It's their, the three times a year convention that happens here in Southern California. It's, I think, one of the oldest and maybe the only ones down here still. I'm going to be running a couple games there and involved in a couple games. I'm going to be running the RuneQuest starter set, the introductory adventure.
Nice.
There, which I couldn't tell you in the times that I've been there if I've ever seen RuneQuest offered up. So I'm hoping that we get some takers.
I think you will.
And I hope so. I mean, and it's for those familiar with the RuneQuest starter set. Literally, I can almost just show up because everything is there and prepared for me. It's going to be using those beautiful pre-gens.
Which scenario are you going to run?
The first one. I don't have it in front of me.
That's fine. I know which one it is because I have the starter set too. But no, that's good. I think that'll be a good one.
And then this is kind of more for me, but I'm going to be running Sue Savage's Matrons of Mystery,
nice.
Offering that up, and I'm going to be running the is it to Dice for the one scenario that takes place at a gaming convention,
yes.
I believe. So looking forward to that, and of course, I'll be looking forward to feeding how that goes back to Sue.
I hear Justine might make an appearance in that game.
Oh, yes.
Sorry, listeners. That's an inside joke.
And I'm going to be playing the Dresden Files Fate Accelerated. Be playing in that.
I heard a rumor about that.
Yeah?
Yeah.
And someone's offering Sword of the Serpentine or Serpentine, which is another kind of like, whoa, really?
We're going to have to talk about your opinion of that after on the next episode, because I'm genuinely curious.
Yeah. And then, of course, with that is... doing a video to show you and Bud and Pookie what's for sale there.
Oh yes,
at the traders venue and the flea market. So
so for everybody, last year at Strategicon, Scott was our shopping mule. Yeah. And so for Bud, Pookie, and I, he did a little Zoom live from the flea market space, and he went through boxes and tables, and we just kept telling him to grab stuff, and all kinds of stuff ended up at my house a couple of weeks later, and a bunch of it ended up in England. So
I must say,
it was
even
wonderful.
Though it was my pleasure to be your guys' RPG mule, it took a bit of effort to get both of those ElfQuest boxes up there. So I am... Never mind. So that's kind of, just it off the top of my head of,
nice.
Rolling into 2022, definitely have some, things to look forward to.
Right.
And things to report upon, when we continue on with, other aspects of the podcast.
Right on. I think the only other thing I've got is to add to that is obviously I'm looking forward to playing Night Below in my Wild Mage. Don't know what I'm gonna name my wild mage yet, but we're gonna come up with a hamster appropriate name, because I am sure I will polymorph into a hamster, because every time I've ever played a wild mage, it's polymorphed into a hamster. I cannot break tradition. The other two big things, like big rocks, I want to do this year, at least over the next couple of months, work permitting.
Right.
I wanna get started on Twilight 2000, the 4th edition. I want to get that to the table on Foundry, because I have the Free League's implementation, virtual tabletop implementation of it as part of the Kickstarter. And if I can find the bloody time to read Run Out the Guns, I would like to maybe explore that.
Okay.
So I was able to acquire a copy of Run Out the Guns. It's by, for those who aren't familiar with it, it's by ICE, the original creators of Rollmaster, or Chartmaster as it was affectionately known back in the day. And this is basically Rollmaster Light with a pirate theme. And I've owned the game previously. I bought it, no kidding, in the 90s, off the shelf, new and shrank. Opened it up and never read it, never played it. And I have this thing about pirates. I love pirate stuff. And I'm on a pirate kick again right now. I don't know why, but I am. So I go through these cycles.
It's almost as if you are between the devil and the deep blue.
I'm not going there. I'm not going there. Jason and Jesse, I love you, but I'm not going there. So I was able to acquire a copy off of eBay in the last couple of days, week or so, for like $20, almost brand new, like literally like no shrink on it, but 100% complete, unused, unread. So I'm hoping to be able to read. It's got like 10 pamphlets in it, though.
Were you one of those who, when you would buy something, gaming wise, would you put your name in it?
No.
Okay, damn it, because I'm hoping for that, for you to open that up and go, this belongs to Keith. It's like,
I did it with when I was on active duty. I did it with a few of my regularly used books, so we didn't mix them up.
Right. That'd be fantastic though if that's and I just opened it up, never played it, boxed it, and sold it.
And holy shit, I got my copy
so many
back.
Years.
But
it's back.
Yeah, so seller's remorse, and I got it back. So I would like to get it to the table. This year sometime. I would love to do it sooner rather than later, but who the hell knows? So
cool.
Yeah, that's kind of what I'm looking forward to. But the big thing was playing D&D with my 10-year-old granddaughter.
Fantastic. It's a joy.
I love gaming with you guys, but that is just hands down, that's fantastic for me.
Oh, trust me. I mean, when I get to, it's far and few between these days because they're doing their own kick. But when I get to play, with my son and his friends,
right,
it's a joy. It's a different experience altogether. Regardless.
Yeah, wait till your kids are older, man. I got my oldest is 32, and then my youngest is almost 21 and at university.
Right.
So I got the 10-year-old granddaughter at the house, usually every other weekend or so.
Yeah, you need to do what I see. There's some person who does it. It's like similar scenario. It's like 12-year-old chatter from the gaming table. It's kind of like a segment type thing,
right?
And it'll be just like this offbeat comment that their child has said that either bodes a little bit of wisdom or is a little bit silly or is a really honest to God take on the precious aspects of the gaming industry. That if it was an adult, they would be canceled and blocked, but since it's a child, people are forced to deal with the reality. So
well, now that we had our first session, and she, we used pre-gens, or she used a pre-gen with the kicks, sidekick rule.
Yep.
From the D&D Essentials box set, we did the little Gnome Guard little mission. So now she's back in Phandalin, and she's going to have a couple more missions to choose from, and where she goes from there. She'll decide, but when we got done, she said, "Can I make my own character now?" So we made a full-blown character, so she's going to run her character and her pre-gen with the sidekick.
Excellent.
So she may have some little nuggets of wisdom that I bring to the podcast. Who knows? We'll find out next month.
Absolutely. Well, what do you think? I think you and I may have kind of babbled on a bit here.
Yeah. I think we need to roll into our main segment. We're going to talk about zines, the good, the bad, the ugly, Zymo, whatever they're calling it. We're going to
Zine. It's pronounced zine. Anyways, carry on.
Yes, I know it's pronounced zine.
All right. Well, let's head on over there and we'll get into the nitty-gritty of it all.
Let's do it. All right, listeners, we are back. This month, we're going to talk about zines, the good, the bad, the beautiful. We've got Andy Markham with us. He is a self-proclaimed zinophile. Is that the right word, Andy?
I'm just a fan. How are you?
All right. He's a fanboy, but
That's true.
And Andy's the smartest guy Scott knows.
Well, that's a sad statement right there.
In regards to yes, to a lot of the RPG history and whatnot. So yeah, but also I also want to introduce Andy, because I've brought up your name in several occasions. You are the GM for the online game for the Ash campaign that you've been running for almost 2 years now. It seems like
2 years and a couple months, I think. Astonishing Swordsmen and Sorcerers of Hyperborea, otherwise known as Hyperborea.
Right. And a wonderful outlet of historical and sage advice in regards to RPGs that you're more than willing to touch upon and provide to me and everyone else for all these years. And a lot of people, who listen to this will already know who you are through a lot of other areas, including the Spellburn podcast and other podcasts you've been on. So accolades all around,
clap, clap. Welcome.
Woo! I think, if you're in it for as long as I have been, somebody says you have accolades. The truth is I've just been gaming since before the dawn of time. So those are my credentials.
Well, those are good credentials.
So we're here to talk about, the topic of the hour is we're here to talk about zines for a variety of reasons. Obviously, people are aware it is Zine Month, and we'll touch on that a little bit later on. But we're here to discuss, all things zines, and what better way to talk about than to bring someone who knows a hell of a lot more than we do, so Keith and I don't have to stumble and pretend like we know what we're talking about. And what is a zine, a history of the zines, where zines are currently in its modern incarnation, and, toss in a bit of opinions here or there and just have a general casual discussion of it. So
sounds like a blast. Let's do it.
All right.
All right. I want to caveat. Well, before we get started, let me caveat this. For listeners, if you head over to our YouTube channel, you'll be able to see some video footage. Andy's got some show and tells that may end up on the camera. So if you want to check out some of these older zines, some newer things as the conversation's happening, obviously check out our YouTube channel.
Yes. And I brought some also just for fun, for shits and giggles. So
nice.
Yep.
I got a few.
So Keith, where should we steer the ship? Where would we like to begin?
Let's start. Obviously, let's go back in time, right? Kind of rewind everything. Let's go back to the beginning, but zines have been around in my research since like the 30s with some pulp sci-fi. So
I think even before then, like 1800s amateur press association, zines,
Yeah. There you go. So let's start with that. Like for zine collectors, right? What is a zine? Like what was a zine in the 70s as it relates to like role-playing games or even other genres that influenced our love of our own hobby to have zines?
I think at its core, it's just a way for people to express their fandom and to participate in a thing that they love in any genre that might be. Music or pulp fiction, movies, and of course, role-playing games.
Okay. Go ahead, Scott. Go ahead.
Oh no, I was just add to that and totally agree. I mean, it's another term. Obviously, is a fanzine, which kind of may mean a different thing in different circles, but there's an amateuristic appeal to this, where you can be a part of something so much bigger than yourself, and yet don't have to provide a lot of expensive materials or certain things in regards to it to show your love of a particular genre. And yeah, it's probably been around for a long time, but the general definition of what is a zine has always been this this kind of like, I'm going to get 2 pieces of paper, go to my dad's office when he's not there, run a few things through the copy machine, including my butt at least once, staple that together. And
now we know what Scott does in his free time.
Oh, geez, I just did it before we started.
I was just asking you, did you see me in my dad's office doing that? Because you just described the 80s for me.
Oh my gosh!
And then there you had it, and then you would give it to friends and maybe a couple people, and you would run off 50 or maybe even 15 copies of it, but it wasn't really meant to be done for the sake of monetary reason. It was just done for the love of whatever it is you were making it for.
Yeah, they were like handouts or flyers. Like, here's what I love about our scene, and here's how I want to grow our scene. And please acknowledge me. I'm in our scene or whatever. And it was handouts like flyers, almost like, or business cards.
Right.
Yeah, I remember in the music scene when I was a teenager going to the clubs and stuff and checking out live shows and garage bands and whatnot, getting like a little 4-page, maybe 6-page, single staple, maybe triple staple zine that somebody ran off like at Kinko's or, or at the Xerox machine at mom or dad's work. I mean, I remember those things. Mm-hmm. Cheesy art.
So important to have a friend at Kinko's, right? You could, whoever was working the overnight shift, preferably, you kind of just roll
Hook a brother
in there.
Up.
Exactly. That's what it was all about.
I need 16 copies of this.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
So, well, then I guess, with that, in that regards, there's a general idea of, what may constitute at least a zine from its inception. And so, a lot of it, a lot of people may instantly recognize something within music. I mean, it's big within music, but it doesn't mean it was singular to that. And so which brings us into, why we're here, and we're talking about RPGs and games. Yeah, and then that's why we have our, repository of historical knowledge. Keith,
look,
wait,
no, it's not Keith.
No, listen, it is not me either. That is John Peterson, for the record.
True.
Yeah.
I get that, but
I am just a fan and a light collector, and happy to.
So
talk
speaking
about
of
the
your
things
collection, so what is your earliest zine? Like, give us a good example of a rock solid early zine.
I mean, I think we got to first define what a zine is, right? Because my earliest role playing game stuff is not a zine. Right. Unless you count OD&D as a zine, and we're right there in the gray area right out the gate.
Yeah. Right. All right. So then collectively, how are we going to define the zine for listeners so we can, as the basis of this conversation?
I think the general point is that you can't, but you can express your opinion about what it is. Right. Typically, it is some DIY style stapled digest size thing. Doesn't have to be digest. In fact, some of the more important zines in RPG history are 8.5 by 11, most notably Alarms and Excursions. But most people think of a zine as a digest size or an A5 sized, for those in the UK, stapled, handmade pamphlet style thing, which is why it's so confusing with early role-playing games, because Chainmail 1971 came out in that style, and of course original Dungeons and Dragons 1974 were all in the pamphlet style presentation.
Right. Mm-hmm. Now I know you have a collecting passion for Arduin. Did I say it right?
Yeah, sure. Well, some people say Arduin, but I say Arduin because D is in there somewhere.
Yeah, exactly. So, but to me, that's always been a zine. It has this DIY look to it. It has the digester A5 size to it, saddle stitched. The early ones look like they could have been high-end Kinko's.
Sure. But they were also made to emulate the OD&D books, right?
Right.
The little brown books of original Dungeons and Dragons, is the Arduin books are packaged similarly with the same kind of hand-sketched amateur style art.
Right.
Also, Errol Otis's first paid work.
But why wouldn't those be a zine, though?
Well, I think I would call them a zine. You call them a zine. I don't think the author, David A. Hargrave, would call them a zine. He would call it a system. I would disagree, and so did Gary Gygax in multiple zines. But yeah, so basically it's a supplement to Dungeons and Dragons. Does that make it a zine? I don't know. Kind of. It's kind of like, here are some of my house rules or some cool ideas that I had in a very interesting but haphazard presentation. And you flip through it, and every page is just dripping with evocative inspiration, which is what drew me to them. Of course, I was a kid at the time, and I still love them. But yeah, I think they're zines, but I think the author would disagree that they are zines.
So what are some good examples then of that early zine stage? We were discussing earlier of how, like, the creation of what would become, D&D and Chainmail, was this culmination of what you said were like, just a variety of different, fanzines of that particular scene. And it became this repository. But then, of course, that would have spawned, other zines. So you had mentioned Alarms and Excursions.
Yeah, I don't know if that's the official first, role-playing game zine. Certainly there were lots of gaming zines before then, especially wargaming zines.
Oh, yeah. Oh, my God, yeah.
And I think going back to the 50s, and I think a case could be made that early or original Dungeons and Dragons is essentially a compilation of ideas using rules elements from war game zines that were previously published. In other words, there was no, this is how to play the game in any of those books, either Chainmail or OD&D or any of the supplements. Only until sort of Holmes, I think, which was 1977, Holmes Basic Edition, did you get, here's how to play the game in any meaningful way. And even then, point being, I think OD&D itself was a form of zine. But in terms of the fanzines that D&D spawned, there was a big scene in England, I mean, namely Beholder, I guess Owl and Weasel, which became White Dwarf, and lots of other titles. But in the U.S., you had, of course, The Dungeoneer by Janelle Jacques, and Alarums and Excursions, which is sort of the most well-known apazine. And that's, I'll show my issue here. This is August 79.
Oh, wow.
This is an 8.5 by 11. And I mean, it is mimeographed, tightly typed. I mean, this is basically
it looks
chat
like a
forums.
It looks like a manual.
It looks like a tech manual.
Yeah, from the 70s.
It's really just nerds yelling at each other from issue to issue. And basically saying, like, here's what I would do if I were Gygax and I'm better than Gygax. There's some version of that in every page on here. Right. And by the way, Arduin was spawned from these very pages. In fact, you can sort of trace the roots of the Arduin publication.
Now I got to start collecting something else.
Well, I mean, spoiler alert, this is still in print. I mean,
I know. Yeah.
Lee Gold still publishes, I think it's since 1975 until present, and now there's a digital archive of it. So check that out if you're interested. It's a true repository of the origins of the game. Highly recommended. Although lots of nonsense in there.
Yeah, I found that out in some of my my collection, as far as picking up certain of the older magazines and looking at them, or finding them in a rarity if someone was kind enough to scan these old historical documents and whatnot. And there is a lot of granted, there's a lot of insight into how games used to be. There's some really good discussions that could be had today, but there's also a lot of just kind of like fluff and nonsense and just like good lord,
trash talking.
It's a lot of back and forth, and it was set up in a way that the letters would respond to each other from issue to issue, month to month. So when you read it, you're following this elongated argument. It's like watching a train crash in slow motion. It's great fun.
It's soap operas in the 70s.
Or it's really like social media forums, but in really slow motion.
That's really cool. I mean, to me, that 8.5 by 11 manual zine is large format, but a classic zine to me. It's community content. It's mimeographed. It's homemade. It's aesthetic is DIY.
Right.
That's what to Keith. That's what defines a zine.
Yeah, Judges Guild felt the same way. I mean, they had. Well, I mean, the Dragon magazine or the Strategic Review, its predecessor, were essentially the house organs of TSR. Just not that they existed solely to promote their items, but spoiler alert, that was a big part of it. But the Judges Guild Journal was one of their zines, and the Dungeoneer, and then later Pegasus, were all done on newspaper print style pages, like all the early Judges Guild stuff. But it was really just content. It wasn't advertising as much as the TSR magazines were, like Imagine and the Dragon.
Right, and other forms like Across the Pond, where Worm's Footnotes and thing, and essentially the precursor to what White Dwarf would become and whatnot.
Owl and Weasel, I think it was called.
Right, and there was maybe a little there was definitely adverts in there. These was a publication to make a little bit of money to keep them rolling or support. At the time that was Chaosium and whatnot. But they still had that look, you know what I mean? That like
an amateur feel. Yeah.
Right. Exactly. Okay. I think we're kind of, I mean, I could be wrong, but it's kind of sounds like, at least from the inception, we have a relatively level definition of what we considered a zine to be, or what it was when it came out.
But if we go ask 6 other people, they'll have 6 other definitions of what a zine is. So,
but I tell you, the one common thread that I think most people will agree on is the DIY, the do-it-yourself aesthetic. This sort of homemade, I want to contribute, and it's not mass marketed. It's not professionally, glossily presented, at least back in the day. These days, the sky's the limit. But I think that DIY aesthetic is a cornerstone of what the zine thing is.
Right.
Defined.
Exactly. And speaking of definition, that's just so we're all at the same level. The one thing that we can clearly agree upon in regards to zines and what they are and how they're represented is the proper pronunciation is zine. And if anyone says otherwise,
it's not Zine.
We have an email address. You can file your complaints there. They will immediately go into the recycling bin. But by all means,
Zines.
It's either a small magazine,
right,
which is zine, not zine.
Right.
It's not magazine, or it's a fanzine. It's who says fanzine? No one in the history of time ever said fanzine.
No.
Well, let's be clear. According to the Bindery website, zine is a noun pronounced zine, Z-E-E-N, zine.
It's fine.
Well,
there's an academic.
I don't appreciate the Bindery telling me what to do. Thank you very much.
Well, they are encouraging you, but they are encouraging
I'm on Team Zine now.
Okay, fine.
Right.
But they are encouraging you to do the DIY thing. So
okay. So go ahead, Keith.
I was gonna ask. So we kind of got to look at what, like, in a definition of what a 70s zine looks like. How does it evolve 70s into the 80s and through time to where we are today?
These are some British zines from the 80s. We've got here Abyss, Thunderstruck, and Dragon Lords. And, these are all the digest size, but these are clearly what we're talking about, that kind of Xerox copied, type it up on, your parents' typewriter and hand it out. But I think in the 80s, pretty much the same thing. But in the 90s, all of a sudden Microsoft Word became ubiquitous, and then the desktop publishing boom began. And some of the worst layouts in history were seen at that time.
Oh my God, yes, that is so true.
Hey, come on. Clip art, who am I kidding? Clip art sucked.
Scott, go back under your clip art rock.
But if we're talking about 80s zines, we got to talk about Tortured Souls.
Okay.
Right here.
So yes, let's do, because you've brought it up, and it's been brought up by other people who, Pookie as such, who is definitely a collector of those magazines. But awesome. For those of us who aren't familiar, what is Tortured Souls?
It's basically a magazine from the UK by a company called Beast Entertainment, or they call themselves Beast Ents, and they published 12 issues of Tortured Souls with an exclamation point at the end.
Right.
And what it really is are scenarios for AD&D, but they're done in this kind of pulpy ad hoc way, and it has a slightly higher production value. It's kind of like between like Judges Guild and TSR of the era. And I think it's mid to late 80s, like 84 to 88 or something like that. And then it's segued into other different companies and periodicals after that. But there's just something so metal and trashy and cheesy and gonzo about it, kind of like the Arduin stuff was in the late 70s. And I just have a personal place in my heart for it.
That cover's badass.
Yeah, I've seen some of the other covers too. They're all.
Any one of them could be an 80s metal album cover. I mean, it's it's like Lamentations of the Flame Princess before Lamentations.
Right. So that brings us to a question then, if you know the answer to it. Keith and I were talking earlier before you popped on, and at least for us, when we were gaming in the 90s, even with the explosion of word processing and home publishing and whatnot, for the life of us, neither one of us could think of, unless it's something just local to an area, just between friends or small group, of some zines that existed, because we were in the shadow of the all-powerful TSR at the time, and the only magazines that at least I would be familiar with would be like Dragon or Dungeon or White Dwarf, that kind of thing. So do you have any reference for that period, that some that might be around?
I don't off the top of my head. I possess some small digest-sized zines that were made in the 90s. I didn't pull them, and I don't remember the titles off the top of my head, but they have this, dot matrix aesthetic to them that is at once endearing and awful and credible and loathsome. And the truth is, I was on the road all of the 90s, so I just wasn't around for that. I saw plenty of rock and roll zines on the road, but I was playing tons of D&D on the tour bus, but I was not collecting zines in the 90s.
I would imagine probably a large amount of them probably would have fallen into like a Vampire the Masquerade, with that surgence of that fan base. That would be like the perfect environment for, a small group to get together and make a lot of these fanzines. If the possibility of not being sued out of existence wasn't there, but it probably was. But yeah, that's kind of an interesting period because it just kind of seems to fall off a little bit, or at least it wasn't as prevalent as it was. What didn't exist.
I don't recall anything, but again, the early, mid 90s, I was off in boot camp and playing airman. I had a moderate break in the whole gaming scene, and I got back into it in the mid 90s after getting situated at my first duty station, all that. And it was AD&D and nothing but AD&D because, here in South Carolina where I was at the time, God knows I'm still here, you couldn't find all the other stuff. It was hard to find anything else, let alone a zine of any kind.
Well, I'm sure it existed, man. I think we were just busy becoming professionals.
Life.
And there are probably people watching this now like, oh, my favorite zines were in the 90s, and you guys don't know what you're talking about. And they're right. We could probably do a 2-hour show on zines from the 90s. We just don't know any of them. Because we came back to it, and now we're in the golden age we're in the deep weeds of OSR, which is so zine-orific. That somehow the 90s seem like a distant past, right?
So you're very gracious to pull a bunch of your stuff from your collection. Is there anything else there you want to highlight? Because I know because we're going to be putting this up on video, and as for me, I love seeing this kind of stuff. And in my immediate knee-jerk reaction when I even see someone post it is, I'm online looking for something, whether to pick it up or just to
I want to find Tortured Souls now.
Good luck.
Yeah, good luck. Good luck trying issue number 12. I have all but 12. But look, Scott, I could occupy your time for 4 hours with the answer to that question.
Just like a couple.
I'll show you a couple few snazzy things, and then if you want sort of more specific examples of something else, you can ask me a pointed question. I'll give you an example.
Perfect.
So this neat pile, I think there was a surge in the late 70s and early 80s of I think people thought that there needed to be more magic spells in the games. So everybody and their mom sort of published a digest-sized spell book. This is the Tome of Mighty Magic.
Yes.
It's by North Pole Publications. These are the types of things you could send away for, from the back of the Dragon magazine or White Dwarf. Wizard's Aid.
The little corner ads that,
Wizard's Aid looks like, I just created that at my dad's work in 1983 kind of thing.
This is 1977. Yeah.
See, even earlier.
This is kind of like a spell duel style game.
Nice.
The Dragon Tree Press had their Book of Spells. There was a Book of Demons.
I've seen that one.
Authentic thaumaturgy. People were getting deep into this kind of thing, trying to sort of merge real world magic and Wiccan practice with D&D in like the cool, Necronomicon style.
Pre-satanic panic.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And
that contributed to it.
Necronomicon, here is the Necronomicon by the aforementioned Errol Otis, which is basically a book of spells by Errol Otis and I think Paul Reich III. And he had his monster and treasure book called The Booty and the Beasts as well. And
that's classic.
Safe for work. This is sort of early Errol Otis, like late 70s, 77, 78, 79. And pretty collectible, wild to look through, very inspirational. If I haven't prepped for a game, I could just pull one of these off the shelf, open to any page, and either an image or a phrase or a concept will inspire me, and I could milk that into a 4-hour game.
Nice.
So that's really what zines are for me. They are sources of inspiration that are a little off the beaten path. They're getting into the mind of somebody's idea of what's cool in role-playing games. And I get sick of my own mind. I want to reach into somebody else's mind and learn. And this is the coolest way to get a glimpse into that, into their world.
So
those are awesome.
We hit the 90s, and granted, obviously, like you said, there's probably a ton of zines we're just not aware of. But at a certain point, this DIY aesthetic starts to grow a little bit, I think, as we're kind of getting through the history a bit. Would this lead us into what essentially would become the OSR, or was it the OSR that led to this zine DIY aesthetic, kind of where we're getting almost to today?
I mean, one hand scratches the other.
Right.
And everyone's going to have a different opinion on that. First of all, no one can agree on what the OSR is, let alone when it started. But, I mean, look, to answer your question in a zine context, here are some of the more important and early zines of the OSR. So this is Fight On magazine.
Okay.
Oh, yeah. I remember Fight On.
And, some of the more prominent OSR authors and publishers sort of, not that they got their start doing this, but this is one of the more prominent outlets for it. There were numerous other outlets, including, I think it's called AFS, is one of the earlier quote-unquote OSR zines, which I should pull some. They had a neat sort of plastic spiral binding. This is Knockspell.
Oh, yeah.
So swords and wizardry focus, but I mean, look, OD&D and DX or Holmes Basic. And then speaking of the UK, Oubliette.
Yes.
So, and there are tons more, but these are sort of some of the prominent titles. Also, you'll notice 8.5 by 11 format.
Right. I was just going to say that.
And these are, prominent early OSR print zines. And a lot of these are print on demand. And they are pulled from what we call, I guess, the blogosphere. Basically gamers of our age or thereabouts who have been gaming since either the late 70s or early 80s, who now have either disposable income and time or both, and are talking about it on the internet because blogs are a thing now.
Right.
That sort of,
I don't know anything about that.
Exactly. It's sort of what we all do all day, every day. James Malinowski, or however you pronounce his name, Grognardio, sort of one of these early important blogs. And this stew launched 1 million zines.
So I got 3 I'm going to just throw up on the screen. These are all modern era stuff, but so like it's Old School and Cool, an OSR zine.
Yeah.
So this is number 2. Currently number 3, I think, is on Kickstarter, but this is number 2. It obviously is beyond the DIY, right? Because it's published by a publishing company, but not unlike some of those other things you've showcased already.
I mean, the publishing company is probably like one dude and
it's 2 dudes.
Wife or
it's
like
2
that.
dudes. But it does have this simple aesthetic that is very reminiscent of like old school zines, right? And it's for OSE, for Old School Essentials, so it's playing up to that old school thing. But then I've got something like this for camera purposes, Low Country Crawl. This is done by a local little publishing company down here in Charleston. His name's David Sherdewan. He owns the company, and he put this thing together. And I think they just put out a new updated version of this. This is the original version 1. I think it's on 1.5 now. I mean, this is some fantastic stuff. But again, it's not DIY per se, and it's not desktop publishing anymore. It's it's kind of professionally done. And then I have this, and this doesn't qualify as a zine. It doesn't label itself as a zine, which is Girl Underground.
Oh yeah,
which is Alice in Wonderland themed game powered by the Apocalypse engine, and it says it's a role-playing game. So it's not, I mean, it's a game in a zine format versus supplemental things to add to an existing game. It is a game unto itself. So is this classified as a zine. I mean, it has that DIY aesthetic.
Yeah, I think we're back to Arduin, right? Is it a game, or is it a zine, or is it a supplement, right? It's yes is the answer.
Yeah, I know, right? There is no right or wrong answer. But
So, well, I'm going to go ahead and then share something here. And so we're talking about a little bit like, what is a zine and kind of what exemplifies it to a certain degree. And it's more going to be me sharing both what I have here and a person himself. And that's going to be Tim Shorts.
Yes.
I think,
oh my God.
I think
Gothridge
if somebody kind of really exemplifies the kind of what is the base definition of what a zine is, and it's Tim. And I mean, and Tim, it's here's some NPCs. He may do 1 month. Here's a little tiny leaflet of an adventure. Here is, a supplement to something else. And he's producing these things, pretty much every other month. You never know what you're going to get. It's just whatever floats his boat. But he's consistent. But between this and what he's doing, online, supporting other people with the zine group on Facebook and wherever else, I think with all of the, when you saying, hey, this is zine like, or this is technically a zine, but it's well produced and it's glossy. Just Tim really kind of really produces this DIY thing and doesn't really stray from it much. Even the one thing he kickstarted,
you realize you just said DUI.
DUI. Well, yes, I'm not drinking.
Wait. Scott, are you drinking again? What's up, buddy?
No, DIY. Yeah, DIY. That's a different subject. But yeah, the DIY. Even the one thing that he kind of kickstarted and finally came through after this whole COVID thing, still has that kind of that I made this, I just printed this and shipped it in an envelope yesterday.
Well, yeah, he does it. He does it all himself. He staples it himself and he mails it himself. He is true DIY. And for the record, he does have an actual zine called The Manor.
See, that's the one I'm familiar with.
Yeah. And then he's got his Patreon, which, like you were saying, like he produces these tiny little module. He tries everything. I love Tim Shorts. I love Gothridge Manor, and I love what he does. He runs the gamut. I'm so glad you brought that up, Scott. I was going to highlight him too.
Yeah.
See, I want to highlight Ryan Thompson though while we're highlighting some classics as I cover.
Bring out Ryan.
Yeah. So Ryan does these modules. They're not even modules. I mean, some are modules, some are a hodgepodge collection of spells or character classes, options, all kinds of neat little things for old school essentials or any OSR game for that matter. Mm-hmm. Some are specifically a module, like the Hidden Hand of the Horla, which I know he just recently kickstarted. Scott, you did that one, right?
Yep.
Yeah, so I have the original limited orange cover, like the first run of this stuff, and these truly have this DIY vibe.
Right.
I know they were printed by Mixum or something like that, one of those companies, but through and through, they just kind of exude this classic look and feel. It's got this non-shiny, it's a matte, natural finish, like cardstock cover with black art and planar compass, which I love, but that's a little over the top in terms of production value.
That's just a different thing. Yeah.
Right. Not that it's bad. I love it. I love both of these, but Ryan does some really good stuff.
Right.
Agreed.
So then that kind of rolls into the modern day thing. So, here we have companies like, Goodman Games, who's supporting people who are creating zines. We have Tim Shorts, who's creating stuff. We have James Malasetsky. Anyways, Grognardia, producing things like, excellent traveling volume for
Tekkamel. Yeah.
And then this is a recent thing, but then we start kind of rolling into a group of people going, well, hey, we're supporting each other kind of haphazardly in various of outlets, through, what would previously be, Google Plus, but other social media and whatnot. What if we when Google Plus died, and a lot of the interconnectivity and the communication just fell apart, what can we do to support other people and just bring these creations to light, however minimal they may be? And then we have, what would roll into, the beginnings of Zine Quest.
Sure.
And then that just kind of seemed to open up the floodgates of, where we're at today, of just, these zines just kind of, what was just maybe a few people just kind of going, hey, here's my little homemade thing, exploded into, I wouldn't say it would be like into like the aspects of, hey, this is like a really serious, corporate excursion to a degree, but there's people who, rolling into this next Zine Quest, this is their bread and butter. This is what they've been creating and saving up for, to essentially, I'm going to produce something and this is going to take care of some financial needs and whatnot. And then,
it put a very public spotlight on an otherwise underground do-it-yourself movement, right? Because at the time, Kickstarter was very prominent in the RPG industry. I think this was, as it was peaking, it still is quite prominent, obviously.
Yeah.
And
sure.
And one of the executives over there, Luke Crane, invented Zine Quest. I think that was 2018.
Yep.
And man, I think it even caught them off guard how many people were interested. And of course, all the 5e people who were maybe publishing blogs said, wow, I think I could do a folded, stapled, saddle stitched thing, and here's my opportunity for it. And Zine Quest gave it a platform and a spotlight. And how cool was that?
Right. Fantastic. And then, but with it came expectations of like, this quality expectations. Yes.
Well, it was kind of an arms race, right? It was like, who can make the coolest thing, right?
Right. Who can one-upmanship the next team working on one,
or who can make the crappiest, right? Who can make the most derelict looking thing, and everything in between. I guess so. Everyone has their different version of what's cool, and Zine Quest ran that gamut, right?
Yeah, yeah. But then became the confusion of like, when you paid $15 for it, and it looked like someone had folded it haphazardly, you're like, which wouldn't have been a problem years ago because that's the zine. It never folded correctly when you try to fold the printer paper together. But now it's like,
I show you Exhibit A, hypergraphia.
It
does not fold properly. This is truly a DIY.
Push it together.
And that's 2019.
Nice. Yeah. So me personally, I really love where it's gone. The platform that Zine Quest provides for a lot of people who otherwise would have fallen into the black hole of even Kickstarter, or itch.io or something, just lost in the noise and the vacuum. At least they get somewhat of a bit of an uplift, and support from this. And kind of like you said earlier, Andy, it's at least for me, it's one of those where I've got this little section on my shelf where, and granted, I've self-confessed of like, there's tons up there that wow, this looks neat, and boom, on the shelf it went.
Sure.
That, but I can still pull down, open this up and go, wow, this is inspirational towards anything. It doesn't have to be, genre specific, but yeah, it's something that we all, love to support in one shape or another, but it is growing and growing and becoming less definable as, what constitutes, what is a zine now? Is this zine this kind of haphazardly made, folded together things, stapled and sent out? Or is it this beautiful glossy thing that someone's been working on for a year? And,
that's where Keith has a problem with this whole zine conversation. So let me throw my elephant out there to trample on you guys, and then you can kick it in the nuts and send it on its way.
Bring out your elephant, Keith.
All right. So my elephant is, so I said I love Planner Compass. I know what their plans are over the years because I've written reviews about these two, issue 1, issue 2. And I know issue 3 is on Kickstarter right now, and I know they have a long production future. But to me, these things and several other zines that I've gotten recently to review, what's it called? Brew Kessel is one for Old School Essentials. I mean, that thing has it's saddle stitch, but it has a squared off cover. It's that thick. It's 65, 68 pages, something like that. But these things, to me, these zines are starting to turn into what would be better produced as a book. Here's my issue with the whole modern zine scene. Okay. But at $15 a book, by the time this run is done, there's probably going to be about 12 of these things. It'd be for the consumer. If you love collecting zines, like I know Andy does, right? And we all kind of do to some extent. These are fun to collect and read and use and do that kind of thing. But I would, strictly as a consumer, I'd rather buy this as a damn printed book. Collected, put the time, effort, money, and resources into developing this in its full capacity at one go, and let's do this. I mean,
well, look, Keith,
that's the consumer
honest.
in me.
That's what these publishers are working towards. They're getting their ideas out piecemeal in smaller formats while they are, one, writing the material, two, getting experience with layout and production techniques, and three, building a fan base. And then when they have all those three in hand, they're going to publish it in a book format, either in a compilation of the zines or in a completely full new layout with additional material. We have countless examples of this.
Oh yeah. I mean, look at Knock, right? Or Oubliette. I mean, you can buy the DIY collected version of like volumes 1 to 4, volumes 1 to 8. Fight On is the same way too.
Yeah, Back to Basics did the same thing. Yep. Certainly, Crawling Under a Broken Moon for DCC.
Oh yeah,
Gong Farmer's Almanac are perfect examples of those things.
Right.
Oh, yeah.
But Gong Farmers is a perfect example of a community-built DIY-esque, because it's kind of this digital thing that you can do POD. And then you can get the collected version.
Gong Farmers, it's true. That's an incredible phenomenon. The Gong Farmers are. It's basically crowdsourcing in zine format, and then, like you just said, you can buy them in individual portions, or you can get the compiled zine collection on Lulu, which is just such a cool resource. An incredible project
and affordable. I mean, we're not talking a $60 book, and it's, sometimes it seems like it should be, but I mean,
what were they, like $30 for a hardcover, the collected version? 30-ish.
Yeah, that's the fancy one. I think you can get soft covers for like, I don't know, I don't want to speak out of class, but much cheaper than that.
Yeah. So
that's another part of the definition I think we ignored. It's got to be cheap or as close to free as humanly possible, right?
Right.
And Keith, this speaks to your sort of maybe gripe with the emerging scene, is that maybe we're straying away from that. Let's keep it as close to $1 or $5 or $10, and we're starting to get fancy, right? We're starting to charge $12, $15, $18, $20 for these zines. At what point does it go from being a zine to being
a book?
A book,
right?
Yeah.
So, and I keep holding up Planar Compass because
they're gonna send you a strongly worded email. I guarantee you.
No, but I'm not.
That's a great zine.
It is. It's fantastic. Other than I didn't like the layout of this one, the content is hands down fantastic. Though, just read my review.
Your point is well taken. In other words, they're getting very elaborate and ornate with their layout and presentation, which is to some a feature, not a bug, but maybe to young Keith, it's a bug.
Yeah, and
at least it's an elephant.
Well,
to me, it's my elephant. So just keep kicking it in the nuts. All right.
Well, you're getting in that territory when you're dealing with music. Is like, oh my God, they're selling out. This scene that I've supported for so long and that I just love, they're now part of the man. They're high gloss. They're charging $20
I will have
for
to
it.
say though, the Planar Compass team, which is oh my God, Dan Wilson, if I remember right, and his wife, they aren't selling out to the man. No. This isn't the 60s, but they have a vision for where this is going to go, and I like their vision. I like the content that they're writing or curating and cultivating with other writers.
But where does it go? Be writing? Go ahead, Sarky.
I was going to say, just where does it go from being a zine in a more classic sense, right? Like Andy said, like inexpensive, to being a book or a booklet.
Should they be writing the zine quest wave, in that regards? That's this zine quest is, has a typical foundation of what they're trying to promote. And at what point is someone just using it to continue to promote something that has grown beyond the definition of that? And not saying they're doing that, but you can see tendencies of that in this and also and other things. So when does someone move on and say, well, you should be kickstarting your own stuff and self-promoting this? And
right, where does that original zine publisher go from being like a bootstrap kind of operation to being a production company, a publishing company?
The answer is when they have enough people who are going to buy their stuff that it no longer warrants, an 8-page zine. Maybe they can up the production value because they have more of a budget. That's really the answer. Let me give you some examples of some things that fall right into this wheelhouse. I think we all know that one of the OSR darlings is Hot Springs Island. I think it won Ennies. It's lauded for its production value.
I still don't own it.
Well, that sucks for you.
I know it does.
Hot Springs Island started as a series of zines. I'll show you one here. It's called Toxic Elven Smut.
Nice.
And this has got some fancy sort of foil on it. I don't know if it comes across on Zoom. They did another one for the Night Act zine, which I think for some reason...
I have all that in digital.
Yeah. So the point is, they went from just a plain Toxic Elven Smut to a fancy one, and I think they generated a fan base, sort of grassroots style, G+, and all the rest in social media. And then eventually when they felt confident with the layout and they got enough material, they compiled it into this incredible faux leather embossed Hot Springs Island book, which won all the awards and sold out multiple printings and yada, yada, yada. Same case could be made. I mean, the quintessential one for the OSR is Lamentations of the Flame Princess, which started as a freaking heavy metal fanzine, right, by James Raggi, and which was called Lamentations of the Flame Princess, and then became a game, which he started in all zine form before the box sets.
I remember the Grindhouse edition.
Yeah, well, there's 6 or 7 years before that led up to that, and it was all stuff like this. That's a perfect example of what you're talking about. When does it go from being a zine into becoming a game or a book or a box set in that case?
Yeah.
Hyperborea, which we play every Saturday night, Scott, started as in zine format as well.
So just because I don't know the total history of Ash.
Well, let me grab it.
I did own at one time the original box set, which had the spiral bound books.
Yeah. So you're talking about this bad boy right here.
Yes, yes.
But, Talanian also produced stuff for Osric in zine form. And some of his earlier dungeon scenarios were in zine form as well.
Rats in the Walls,
Yeah, and so here's another format. I don't know. I think this may be A7 format. I can't remember the name of it.
I picked up a copy of that. He was offering it when he was kind of doing a clearing out recently, and I wasn't aware that was something that was a predecessor to it. I thought it was just like, let's make a zine to coincide with the game. So that's cool.
And I don't even know if they're actually zines. They're really just modules, right? But they're in digest form. But for instance, so Luke Crane, who's the creator of, or he named Zine Quest and was the executive at Kickstarter when Zine Quest was launched, he published his Miseries and Misfortunes, which is a BX sort of interpretation of France in 1633 in Paris, and sort of dueling, societal and pistol dueling in historic France. And so it's set in a very unique format here. So but it's also as DIY as you can get. It's it looks old school. It has an old school aesthetic. It uses all...
I thought you pulled out like a weird shaped Baron Munchausen, to be honest with you.
Point being, and then this emerged into an actual book later on, which he published, under his publishing company.
Right.
The point is, there's an evolution to all these things.
Sure.
And sometimes they just start and peter out. Sometimes they blossom into full-blown publishing companies. One other brief example is Paolo Greco at Lost Pages, who produces the Chthonic Codex box set. He produced these really cool zines early on, where I don't know if he did them himself, but they have a very DIY aesthetic, and now he's a legitimate OSR publisher.
Right.
God,
so
there's
so
many things I need to learn about zines.
Well, there's
besides my elephant.
We got together.
Yeah, I know. Besides my elephant, who is now neutered. But that's okay, because Keith's learning. It's cool. Yeah. But like I said, I mean, we could ask six other people from around the world, and everybody would have their own definition of a zine. What makes a zine? What is a zine? What is a booklet? What's a book? So I think it's going to be one of those, we can all agree to disagree on what a zine is. I think the three of us kind of have this overarching idea of what we accept as a general definition of a zine, but obviously everybody has their own opinion, so that's cool.
And if they defer a certain bit, it doesn't really get under our craw unless they pronounce it Zine. If that's
it's right out.
Yeah. Nice.
Oh, well played, sir.
So just kind of we're getting close to the 1 hour marker, believe it or not, and as Andy said, and we firmly believe we could turn this into a 4-hour podcast if we had the time very easily.
Hold on. I do want to show my favorite zine.
Okay. Go ahead.
It has, I'm not going to show it quite yet, but it has this very DIY aesthetic. It's very kind of artsy fartsy, which is kind of a hallmark of zines, right? Kind of custom art and hand done stuff.
Is that what you were working on the other day when you bought that box of crayons?
It was.
All right.
Totally cool. Was. It's hanging up in my office now. I just want to show this. Is this a zine or a book?
Morkborg? That's a book.
Or I'm not going to butcher it and try to pronounce it.
That's a game.
So, yes, it is a game. Lock, stock, and barrel. It's a game.
But it came from what would be considered a zine, much like Mothership did. So.
Right. But this has a lot of the hallmarks. Okay. Although its production value is over the top, but it has a lot of the hallmarks of a zine. It's kind of this art punky hodgepodge collection of things, like art styles anyways, because this thing is glaringly bright. It's just like over the top, which totally metal. I mean,
let me show you an actual metal zine.
Nice.
Well, then there's Death Machine.
Yeah.
And we got to give a shout out to Mystic Punks. I mean, these guys rule the school. But I think, Keith, that is firmly not a zine, that game, for sure. It may have evolved from zine culture and takes a lot of the aesthetics from it, but that is
that's why I brought it up, because Keith does not think this Morkborg is a zine. I mean, it's clearly a hardcover book. It's by a publishing company and then distributed through Freeligan. I mean, this is truly a book, but it does have some of the aesthetic of
absolutely
that it takes from like the zine culture.
Oh yeah,
or the zine scene or the Zine scene.
Oh, shame on you. And Scott, before you wrap this, I got to do a couple of honorable mentions from
Please
Smithsonian
the
Arts
Undercroft.
Council, the Undercroft zine, Daniel Sell and Company. They publish Troika now. Incredible zine. Vacant Ritual Assembly, which is done by Red Moon Medicine Show. A really incredible and inspirational zine. And
I've heard nothing but good stuff about that. I don't own any of those, but yeah.
It's hard. They're hard to get in print, but just get the PDFs for inspiration. And I think we got to say Gavin Norman's Dolmenwood, which has been actually published as Wormskin zine. And unfortunately, they're all print on demand, but the content alone, and obviously it's going to get kickstarted into a ginormous, awesome book. But what an incredible zine. So Scott, we're coming on an hour here. Bring it on.
So I was just wanted to touch on a couple subjects here before we kind of wrap it up. You wanted to mention, I would assume this might have to do with like the publishing aspects, but you did wanted to touch base on Lulu, and Lulu is definitely an important part of this conversation, I think. So what was it that you kind of wanted to discuss?
Yeah, I mean, to Keith's point, like, when does it become a book and not a zine? And when are you doing it yourself versus farming it out? So Lulu is print on demand company. I think it's the most popular. It's one of many. But if you generate content and then lay it out and then just upload it to a company like Lulu, and then they ship one copy to each person who buys it, is that the same as making your own zine? I say yes. Some people would say no.
Right.
And certainly, when you hire a printing company to print your zine, you're no longer doing it yourself, but you created all the content and the layout. But then it does blur that line between zine and book, and so it lives firmly in the gray area. But Lulu's a part of that conversation. I'm not pro or con, but I mean the earlier stuff that I showed you, Fight On and Knoxbell, those were all print on demand via Lulu, and they're definitely considered to be zines. So go figure.
I thought my Morkborg was a good piece.
It was perfect. It's sort of the natural evolution. It's the state of the art in role playing game design right now, or indie RPG publishing.
That art, that kind of art house kind of flair that people
punk,
are kind of art punk kind of thing.
I guess that's the thing. I mean, look, like Burning Wheel Headquarters, one of the premier publishing companies in indie role-playing games, also makes zines.
Yeah.
Morkborg started from zines. Lamentations started from zines. A bunch of these companies, and they will probably continue to create more zines. The company that publishes Hot Springs Island still publishes handmade zines that I know for a fact
I picked up.
the guy puts in the mail himself by hand. So it's both, and it's that gray area that is what we love.
Well, Morkborg, just to carry that on for just a second, Morkborg itself has spawned with their third-party license a ton of zines, especially I know we're not going to get too deep into it, but like this year's Zine month, right? Zemo or whatever they're calling it. That's February and into March. There is a ton, has been or continues to be or will be more, a ton of Morkborg stuff this year.
Right.
Yeah.
A gluttony
same with OSE and Mothership. Same. In other words, just putting that brand on your zine makes it, I don't know, let's be honest, it advertises it to a much wider audience than most publishers or people could attract on their own, right?
Without a doubt. You see that Mothership logo, you see that Morkborg. Well, it's yellow, so you know it's Morkborg. You see that DCC RPG logo in the corner. And OSC, you immediately, it draws you're going to look at it more so than maybe some of the other ones. So that goes without saying.
I just thought the aesthetic, the layout of Morkborg was always like if the 80s band Striper was crushed under a boot, that's what Morkborg would be.
And then had children.
Yeah. Just the splattered remains of a squashed Striper. I mean, the actual humans in Striper.
That's where the bright neon pink comes from.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay,
yellow,
listeners.
Yellow.
Yeah, yellow. Okay, listeners, you've heard it here. I want someone to now make an official Morkborg Striper themed adventure, please.
Squished like a bee.
Right. All right. That, you know what? That's it.
Yeah.
We're gonna produce. Titterpigs is gonna create it.
Oh God.
We're gonna hand publish it, and Andy's gonna distribute it for us. There we go.
Ready for it.
All right.
I'll be ready to be sued by Striper because I'm sure they're still around.
And I'm ready to have the cases of unpurchased zines languish in my warehouse for decades.
Excellent. There'll be a collector's item someday. Never.
Awesome.
So I know. Do we want to talk about Zinemo at all?
Well, yeah. Yes. So I was going to kind of roll it into. So we currently as we're recording this, it's 16th of February, 2022, right?
Yeah.
And Zine Month is firmly running and will run in through March as well.
Yes.
That being said, there was no Zine Quest this year, this time of year. It's been punted down the road to August, to the dismay of many little indie publishers that do the zine scene thing. So hence why it became Zine Month and not Zine Quest till later in the year. So I don't think we can talk about zines without at least kind of talking about Zine Month and Zine Quest's current upcoming iteration, at least at a high level.
Yeah. Well, it's an astonishingly strange decision, I think, by Kickstarter to not do Zine Quest at the same time that they always have, which is, I think, winter, like December or something like that. So that your product could be ready for all the summertime conventions, namely Gen Con, right?
Right.
You would be able to create it, fund it, print it, publish it, and then receive it in time for convention season. That's gone. So the genius solution is that the community has rallied to invent Zine Month, a DIY concept to make zines in time for convention season.
Right.
All on
absolutely grassroots.
Exactly. Grassroots to the core, kind of reclaiming, as it should, zines from Kickstarter, the big, billion-dollar mega corporations. So I say thumbs up, Zine Month.
Obviously, that's a grassroots thing. Totally cool. I support those folks that are grabbing the reins and pulling them back and reclaiming kind of the ownership of their stuff. Not that Kickstarter had any ownership, but just reclaiming it as a grassroots tradition, right? Being Zine Quest was running it. I think it was every February it would run. And that's why a lot of these publishers had things in the production queue that were ready to go for February and into early March. And then they're like, well, where's Zine Quest 4? And then it late notification. Hey, we're not going to do it. We're going to move it to August. What's our general consensus on moving it to August? For listeners that don't necessarily know the dates, obviously it's moved to pretty much the whole month of August, will be Zine Quest 4, but the peak of it, or at least the beginning days of it when everybody kind of wants to get in on it, are right smack dab in Gen Con 2022.
Yeah, people are busy. These indie publishers and authors and layout folks, they're busy that time. It's also people go on vacation in the summertime. It's just like, I don't know, maybe there's some kind of internal logic to it that I am not grokking, which is completely possible.
Oh, yeah, sure. Me too. But I know
it doesn't make sense to me.
Right. I know Scott's planning to go to Gen Con. I'm still trying to get there. Some work things may prevent me. Some of our friends from England are coming. Nice. Got this whole house rented. I mean, it's going to be a big party for us and a get together. But
good times.
But a lot of money's being spent to go, travel expenses and Gen Con, admission and all of that. So our disposable income is shot,
right?
Potentially, where we might buy and back zines during Zine Quest in February. We're not as likely to do it in August.
You're going to be drunk boosting on Kickstarter from Gen Con hotel room or Airbnb. Come on. Drunk backing, I mean.
Well, that's always possible.
I think that kind of happens regardless of Gen Con, to be perfectly fair.
It happens every Friday night in the Manchester Arms, apparently.
Yeah. So Gen Con ain't going to hold you back. But you're right. Yeah. Generally speaking, it doesn't really seem to make sense, the timing of the...
Right, especially if you have folks... consumers coming over, say, to come to it, say, from England, right? Or mainland Europe or Australia, wherever, and they're deciding to travel. That's big dollars. I mean, Scott to fly out there, me to drive up there, it's far cheaper for us and still leave some disposable income potentially. But now let's look at it from the publisher side, right? The publishers that would be launching these things are if they're doing Gen Con, they're in prime mode for Gen Con, either to promote current products, run a booth, run games, do something, like a very haphazard decision on the part of Kickstarter to do that. Like you said, Andy, maybe there's something we're not grokking. I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
Well, I'm wondering if there's stuff overseas. I mean, I'm looking at UK Games Expo. That's in June. When is RopaCon? I don't even know. The point is, we're thinking very America-centric here. Like, I don't know.
But there's 4 big game conventions, international conventions. 2 are in the US, 1 is in Germany, and 1 is in the UK. So you have Origins typically in June, Gen Con in August, typically late July or early August. You have UK Expo in June, and then you have Essen Spiel, which is more board games, but it does do role-playing stuff, and that's in Germany, and that's also in the summer months. Or is it into the... No, I think it's October. It's a little further out. But those are the 4 really big game conventions. Yeah. There are other big ones, but these are the big ones that are trade show-esque.
Sure.
That publishers are going to. And they want to have that new product available to sell. The US's biggest game convention is Gen Con, hands down. There's nothing bigger, especially for the role-playing industry. There's nothing bigger. So you want to have that product to sell. And Zine Quest being in February, if a publisher could get it out in time, that was perfect. Mm-hmm. Moving it to the same time as the bloody convention is kind of silly, but
it's very strange to me. Yeah.
Well,
I mean, it almost as if Kickstarter is sort of divorcing itself from the convention scene, and claiming that they exist, in a universe of their own. I'm surprised that other companies like Indiegogo or GameFound haven't sort of taken the ball and run with it. But maybe we'll see that next year.
Kinda, yeah.
I think
also,
we will.
I don't know if Zine Quest is really that important financially, really, to anyone except for like a niche of the gaming community.
Yeah,
sure.
Yeah,
maybe the bigger takeaway here.
Yeah. So, but it's like you had mentioned, it's good to see that they did draw from that good old DIY gumptions. Like, you know what, we're not going to keep this down. We're going to do this ourselves, and it seems to be working out. So they, there's going to be some people who are going we don't need no Zine Quest no mo. And
that's why we got Zine Mo, because they don't need it no mo.
Right.
Xenopalooza.
But no, I got to hand it to the folks, to the men and women and everybody else that is pulling it off this month and next month to keep the spirit of the late winter, early spring zine kind of vibe going and producing and getting stuff out to folks. I got to hand it to them. I mean,
That's great.
They grabbed it by the bootstraps and they're making it happen.
Yeah, let's support them.
Yeah.
Let's plug them and purchase those things from Zinemo. Let's do it. Let's pretend it's Zine Quest 4, but in our hearts.
Yep.
Yeah, but we know it's Zinemo, and we're still good with that too.
Yep. I mean,
or in gamer parlance, Zine Quest 3.5.
Oh, I was waiting for that.
Oh,
I'm sorry. You're welcome.
There we go. Everyone's allowed one.
I appreciate you guys cutting me some slack.
That was well played, sir. Well played.
So, well, do we have anything else we want to touch upon before we?
You got any other goodies, Andy? You want to show?
Yeah.
Talk about?
Don't open the floodgates. I mean, I don't know. I mean, it's all laid out. I mean,
there we go.
Oh my God.
And that's just what I pulled off the shelf. I mean,
right. So listeners, you have to go to
It's
YouTube and watch the spotlight on Andy's couch there. Cause it's just like, that's like history right there.
If we want to do a show that's like Andy's Zines, we could do that. It would be 4 hours long, I'm happy to drag.
We're going to book that. We'll call your agent.
I'm going to definitely say, the first person that's going to comment on this is once Pookie's done wiping his saliva off of his screen, he's going to say, I want to see more. And I think a lot of listeners are going to do the same.
Reach out. I'll talk shop.
So I would definitely love to, hey, what's in Andy's pile today? And then we'll just, make it a thing. So, and just go in a little bit more detail on some of the zines you got there. So that's awesome.
The truth is I do want to show you them all, but let's not go down that rabbit hole.
But we'll, like I said, I'm being serious about let's do this again for sure. And I mean, it's just Z month is every month. As far as I'm concerned. So.
It's every month at Andy's house, believe me.
Do you have anything else you want to promote or talk about, Andy, before we, put a bow on it? Or
play games, make friends, have fun.
Yes.
Touche.
Be kind to each other. Don't fuck around.
Absolutely. And, definitely, with this is what it's about. Take all of the other nonsense with a grain of salt. Don't get too far down the whole Twitter hole or all the other nonsense. Keep focus on friends and having fun, and that stuff will just kind of wash right over you. So,
man. I've been so guilty of that in the past, and lately I've divorced myself from just engaging. And man, life is so much better in the role-playing game world when you do not get woven into that nonsense.
Don't play with the trolls and just have fun.
Oh my God!
Yeah. I think we need an old kind of an AA type thing, but for RPG engagement anonymous kind of thing. Just like,
RGA.
I'm Scott. I haven't been taken down by a troll for 30 days. Hi, Scott. Just take it from there.
All right,
Scott.
Hi, Scott. No, all right. So that's a good lead out for this.
I'm biting my tongue here. Yeah, let's wrap it up.
Be kind to everybody. Play some games. Get to know some new people. Find some new friends. Some new games. Find a new zine for God's sakes.
Yeah.
And remember to kick my elephant in the nuts and keep moving. I mean,
it's a nice elephant, Keith. It was nice to meet your elephant.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. My elephant just needs to keep moving. Then.
Hey, good spending time with you, friends.
Andy, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And for sure, I mean, definitely, I want you to come back on and doesn't have to be about scenes, but for anything. If another thing comes up that you'd like to discuss, or just hop on and chat for just, whatever. This has been fantastic. Here. So
let me know. I mean, I run games 5 nights a week. So pick one of the games, one of the nights that ain't game night, and I'm your Huckleberry.
Fantastic.
Right. Love it. We will definitely have you back. So to wrap it up, Andy, thank you very much. Appreciate your expertise on zines, because obviously we're not subject matter experts on this. And you are
John Peterson on here. Get the real expert on.
Well, we're trying to work with his agent right now. It's a little difficult. No, I'm just kidding. We have not reached out to him, but we may.
You should.
We'll see.
Thank you for bringing your expertise to the conversation.
Sure.
Very enlightening for myself. I'm sure I speak for Scott. Rather enlightening as well.
Yes.
And for our listeners. So with that, well, let's bid you adieu, my friend. And
and when all the hate mail that says Andy got X, Y, and Z wrong comes, I'm happy to field that as well. You just forward it to Andy doesn't give a fuck at gmail.org.
All right, listeners, you heard Andy send the email to that email address. And with that, we are out of here. We'll catch you in the next segment.
Hi, yeah, is this Titter Pigs? I got a special delivery for you. Yeah, sign right here.
Shh! Keep it down. This is like the third delivery this week.
Mommy! Daddy's hiding some more books from you.
Ah, shh!
Hey, listeners, we are here, Scott and I, to do a little bit of a special delivery. We've both gotten a bunch of stuff in the mail as of late, so our mailbags are kind of full. We want to kind of throw it out there and let you guys hear what we got.
Yep, these are stuff that I recently got. And don't worry, it doesn't mean they didn't make the cut for my silly little unboxing video. It just means that it's share and share alike. It's not all about me, and it's not all about Titter Pigs. It's about the community that is Titter Piggity. Oh boy, we need to work on that.
we got to work on a new mantra here or something.
Yeah, but so yes, we got stuff in the mail as we tend to do, and we're just going to go ahead and trade back and forth here and just kind of give a brief description on what we got and maybe a little bit of our feelings on what we have. So Keith, take it away. You take the first one.
Oh, okay. So, all right. So I'm digging deep in the mailbag. Scrunchy. I've gotten recently in the mail Lore and Legacy by Imperial Media Production. Originally, it's a French published game. Yeah. Translated into English, there's a quick start that I received, which is very small digest size, and then a digest size, pretty thick hardcover book. Mm-hmm. They sent it to me to review. I've started kind of digging into it just a little bit because it's still not at the top of my review pile, but I couldn't help myself. So far, I'm kind of intrigued by it. It's sci-fantasy, so we all know Keith doesn't like sci-fi per se, but this is sci-fantasy. It's kind of got this Numenera vibe thing going.
Oh, okay.
But it's not on Earth. It's kind of on a extant planet somewhere in the Milky Way. So it has the whole fantasy thing. Like there's humans, there's kind of like this alien bent stuff. So there's a lot of different like ancestries, races, whatever you want to call it, to play. It's not your like vanilla Numenera, but it's kind of got this element of this past lives, past civilizations that you can tap into. The weird magic and the technology from the past. It's different. It's definitely unique. I'm kind of excited about it. In fact, I told one of our listeners when I met her for coffee recently that I had kind of just started reading it, the intro, and it like grabbed me just like that.
That I like. There's been a lot of things that both you and I have on our plate, that we've been trying to get to either virtually or at the game table or whatever.
Right.
And as of late, there's been several times where I've just been hit. I'm just like, oh God, why did I have to commit to that? I want to commit to the new hotness that I have before me that I just got. Why does it have to be?
Cult of the news strikes.
Right, exactly. Why does this have to be so good? But no, it's unfortunately it's got to wait. But that sounds good. I mean, and if there's anything that kind of pulls you in at least the half direction in regards to like sci-fi, centric. That's a good thing. That says something about it. I mean, as you said, it's kind of like a sci-fantasy thing, but there's still the science fiction-y part about it that
yeah, exactly.
They have to breach in order to grab your attention. So that says a lot about it.
So far, so good. I mean, I'm still reserving judgment because I've barely read much of the quick start.
Right.
But once I read it and the full book and get a grasp of the bigger scope of it, then I'll be able to, cast my judgment and write a review.
Very cool.
All right, so what do you got for us, Scott?
Well, this particular book that I got recently was something that I picked up at Lulu. It took a bit of time to arrive here, and it was primarily...
Wait, my cat gave you a book? What's going on? Yeah. No, I'm just kidding.
And it was done partially by your own recommendation, and also kind of like my interest in the same thing that it covers. It's Casting the Runes, the occult investigation in the world of M.R. James.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, this would probably be more your wheelhouse to give a description of. I'm fairly certain you've read it already.
I've read most of it because I was a Kickstarter backer.
But I got to say that I have listened to M.R. James. I know he's not really in a lot of people's wheelhouses per se. I mean, so
right.
either people definitely know who he is, or they kind of do, or they have no clue, but they somehow circle back to him. So his writings are widely available on Audible, so I was definitely listening to it due to your recommendations. But the big thing that I kind of, I'm looking forward to this is hopefully this will break my, I guess, the issues that I have with Gumshoe.
Okay.
And so, I mean, and I don't hate Gumshoe. My only thing that I had, my only introduction to Gumshoe was the Call of Cthulhu-esque game, Trail of Cthulhu?
Trail of Cthulhu, Cthulhu Confidential.
Not the solo one, so that's
okay,
Trail of Cthulhu.
Yeah.
And I enjoyed it, but maybe it just has to do with the fact that the genre itself that it was being utilized, I just felt that, other games do it better. But in this particular instance, and just the detail of information that it had, just when I was paging through it, just might be more my wheelhouse for what Gumshoe just might be, as opposed to dealing with the the Cthulhu mythos, but more so with the cult aspect that it's presenting here. And I'm a sucker for this type of turn of the century odd period in American history of this this occultism where
if I remember right, it's Edwardian, right? The period I believe is Edwardian. Late Victorian into the Edwardian period.
Right. Where that type of setting is, there's still superstitions, but there's still, the science is changing the world in certain directions, but, make the, a holy sign as you turn a dark corner, or you don't step on on a crack for fear of breaking your mother's back. So there's this intermingling of science as we start to lose our superstitions to that. But, which makes humans clumsy in games like this. You put your faith too much in reality and science.
So here's my question though:
Yeah.
Did you get print-on-demand mystery for it that's not available at Lulu? I believe it's only available at Drive-Thru.
I did not, because I wanted to get the book itself.
Gotcha.
And just read through it. But I gotta say, I mean, I haven't really given a lot of time, but it looks like it's going to be it's jam-packed with information, but it's an easy read. But as far as the layout, the font, and everything, it's an 8.5 by 11 book, which I believe if you backed it, it was in a smaller format. If I'm not mistaken.
No, mine's 8.5 by 11.
Okay, good. So for our aging eyes, they did a good.
It's good for our eyes.
Yes, it's wonderful for our eyes. But no, it seems interesting enough to where I want to give Gumshoe another try. And this might be the one for me to go. You know what, Gumshoe may not be what it's all cracked up to be, in my opinion, but it's definitely something that I would be interested in playing. So
sweet. I look forward to you running it for me.
Oh, shut up.
Because I haven't run it yet. I've read most of it. I haven't run it. So
yeah. Oops! I just lost it. I don't know.
Damn you!
It fell to the bottom of the pile. We'll just have to wait. So
I guess we'll have to go back and play D&D then.
Yes. So what do you got next?
All right. So my next, and it actually came in the same package. No, it came in a separate package. It's called Movie Night. It's a little indie published game from Drive-Thru. Little digest size. I think it's 46 pages, something like that. Mm-hmm. Soft cover. It's by 77 Studios or 77 Studios. I don't know.
Okay.
It's geared for all ages. So if you got kids, you can play. supposedly play with the kids. I'm about halfway through it because it's in my review stack, but this is one I purchased for myself, and it's inspired by the 80s movies, Goonies and E.T. and that kind of 80s vibe, but also things like newer stuff like Stranger Things.
Right.
So the idea is you are kind of playing kids, hence why it's, all ages appropriate. And you are playing one-shot scenarios. They're meant to be played out in 1 to 2, maybe 3 hours. It's basically like a little 3-act movie,
right?
In digest form. This whole genre, playing kids from the 80s, the Stranger Things vibe, kids on bikes, Tales from the Loop, Things from the Flood, that whole genre of games just appeals to me. It kind of strokes that nostalgia itch for me.
Right.
So this was kind of like a no-brainer when I saw it.
And
easy peasy.
I think at this point in time, you can also say that it's not really overly saturated, but you kind of need a different twist to it at this point.
So I'm hoping this is the different twist. I mean, I like Kids on Bikes. I love it to pieces, and I like the Tales from the Loop, Things from the Flood. But there are other games that I've played, and I'm just kind of like,
Right.
So I'm looking for something that's a little different angle. So I'm hoping that's going to be this.
Very cool.
So what else you got?
Well, let's see here.
Horde.
I have this is something that has not recently been published. It's got this weird silver logo on the front called Advanced Dungeons and Dragons 2nd Edition.
Oh, sweet baby Jesus.
No, but what it is so before I reveal it, there's this little podcast called Vintage RPG Podcast, which they do short little takes on a lot of old school games. And
I listen to them regularly. Those guys are badass.
One of the ones that they pointed out was this one, the Campaign Sourcebook and Catacomb Guide. One of many of the AD&D 2nd Edition splat books. What makes this one special and not part of the oversaturation that they did with those and kind of virtually killed the 2nd Edition rule set was what this particular book turns out, according to them, and what I've been finding out, is this was a bunch of information that didn't make the cut for the Dungeon Master's Guide. And what it originally was supposed to be was a supplement, but unfortunately it didn't come out till late in the lifespan of 2nd Edition, so it was overlooked.
Oh, yeah.
And unfortunately, the title of it really doesn't allude to what's inside, but it's full of wonderful, timeless game mastering techniques and information by Janelle Jacquet, or Jacquets. I'm never
I'm
sure.
not going to butcher her last name.
Yeah,
Nope.
so it's either or. So apologies if I get one of them wrong, but I try. But it is,
you are trying.
But one of the things that they that they mention is even though it is seated in old Dungeons and Dragons, AD&D 2nd Edition, is the information you have in there is not really geared towards the rule set. It's specifically designed to provide you with gaming advice that can be applied to 2nd Edition, but is universal. And one of the reasons why I picked this up was in preparation for our AD&D 2nd Edition game that hopefully will be getting off the ground here in a couple weeks.
Oh, hell yeah.
We'll see. But I just kind of got through the introduction, and it doesn't really read like some of the other slap books. Some of those kind of became disjointed with just like, here's some more stuff. This one does continue on in the tradition of the easy read of the original core books that both the Player's Handbook and the Dungeon Master's Guide was for 2nd Edition. So I'm really I'll almost be reading this more from an academic point of view.
Nice.
I'll want to be taking notes through it. I'm going to be highlighting it. Come on, it's more like it may be more like a textbook. So notes and highlighting books may be sacrilege for some, but you can pick this book up, no problem.
Okay.
But now that it's been mentioned by the Vintage RPG Podcast and likewise us, hopefully we don't have the same effect they do, and you'll find the cost of this triple. Because both we don't have the listeners they do, but two podcasts are recommending an old book, and suddenly you see speculation prices happen. So,
oh yeah.
But so the campaign source book and catacomb guide, even though I haven't had a chance to get into it, just from the recommendations that I've heard from them and other people, if you're looking to level up your GM game, I would highly recommend picking it up.
Awesome. Well, that's a good segue into my third and final game for this mailbag or special delivery. So mine is of a similar angle here. It's in its second edition. It was designed by David Zeb Cook. So for those of us that know, which should be a good portion of our listeners, this is second edition AD&D. In fact, it's the player's handbook. The reprint, the print-on-demand version, in fact, from Drive-Thru over at the DM's Guild. So I had to buy it because I don't have my original left anymore, either the original second edition, yes, that you're holding up, and I hate you. I don't have mine anymore, and it's gone the way of the dodo bird at this point. I don't know where it's gone.
Right.
And nor do I have the second edition revised, which is what this is. This particular version is the one that was reprinted and re-released later with the green kind of, I don't want to call it canvas cloth, but like linen cloth cover.
Right.
So this is the one that Wizards is doing as a reprint, POD.
Right.
Yep, I bought it. It's got the red lettering, not the the red headers, not the blue headers of the first printing of the second edition.
Sorry.
Shush. I know when we made my character the other night for the Night Below game, I mean, it was like a trip down, memory lane, because I haven't touched second edition in, my God, a lot of years.
God, yes.
So as I skim through this book and flip through it, I'm just like, I'm taken back to like my teenage years, my early 20s, going, oh hell, this is good. Oh wait, that was clunky as shit. I mean, but it had so many good memories for me, and a few bad ones, but mostly good memories.
So how is the revised edition? Because I recently just kind of stated that I did sit down and reread the original player's handbook, the original printing, and blue headers and bluish artwork aside, I found it to be an incredibly easy read compared to later editions. I breezed through the book, and you're right. I did kind of hit a couple like, that seems a little bit janky. The rules were kind of, here or there. But as far as digesting the information, it was a very simple, easy endeavor. So is the revised edition in the similar format? Because I know it's not the same style and format as the first one.
Right. So layout is different, obviously.
Right.
Aesthetics are different. The game itself is wholly the same.
Right.
From first printing of second edition AD&D to this revised version. There's just some errata included, some slight rules tweaks, typo fixes, things like that. That's the lion's share of why it's revised.
Mm-hmm.
I think it's nice 2-column layout. I believe the first edition of it was the same way.
Right.
But with blue headers, blue bolded text, and things like that.
Oh,
this has
3
red.
Okay.
Huh?
It's 3-column. 3-column layout. I just opened it up and checked. But anyways, sorry.
So this is 2-column. So it's a little easier on the eyes. So it's a little bit bigger. I think might be 12 or 12.5 pitch font for the main body copy. It's easy to read. It's easy on the eyes. The layout is pretty smooth. It seems relatively organic. But it's very much like the original book in terms of physical arrangement, but the aesthetics are different.
Right.
Red, or this kind of pale red, is the dominant color versus the kind of the brighter blue of the first version. That's
all right.
I think most of the artwork is the same. There might be some new pieces of artwork, but it's not. I mean, like the first version, it doesn't have a ton of art, anyways.
Right. Exactly. I was going to say the original printing. Some recycled Dragon magazine covers and a bit of the blue tinged artwork, but it really wasn't full of a lot of artwork itself.
Yeah, this might have 20 pieces of art in it. I mean, it's not a ton, but no, it seems to be for my flipping through, because it's not something I'm like voraciously reading.
Right.
It's more of a reference book for me, but it's easy on the eyes, as I keep having to like increase the magnification on my reading glasses for some reason. I'm getting old, but no, it's easy on the eyes. I think it's better than the 3-column of the original. The red, or kind of the pale red, is not glaring. It's not like this bright red you see like in Windows.
Got it.
When you're or in Microsoft Word or something. It's aesthetically, it's nice. It's clean.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah.
Okay. Excellent. Well, I mean, that's good to know. I was going to bring up something else, but since let's keep it on theme here. So another recent book that I got, which we'll close out the mailbag here with, is my print on demand version of what we're going to be running. And that's the Advanced Dungeons and Dragons Nightblow Underdark campaign.
Woo.
Exactly. Now, if we can corral the rest of the people to give us the time to make their characters, we can get this started. But this book, like so many other books that are print on demand, have pluses and minuses. First and foremost, I don't recall if there was an option going with the premium paper. And if I didn't go with it, I kind of wish that I did, just because it's a thicker book. It's a Nightblow. It's a huge campaign. And so, even though there's no page numbers on here, it's several hundreds of pages. And with the cheaper paper, you're going to get that kind of weird wave,
right,
from the pages not being dried or whatever, or having too much ink on them.
That's
before.
Weird, because my second edition AD&D Player's Handbook is from Drive-Thru as well.
Right.
And this, I don't believe it's premium color, because it was only like $20.
Right.
But the paper's thick, and it's
right.
not like wavy, and not that it has tons of color. I mean, there are some full panel pictures,
right?
But it definitely does not have that cheapy feel to it.
But mind you, this is, well, I mean, I know this is not good for podcasting, but if you kind of see that picture there of the first page, that black oversaturated color of that.
Yeah.
I mean, unless you have some quite high quality thick paper, that's going to saturate it. But
right.
It doesn't mean that it's not usable and not readable. And the whole purpose of me getting this print on demand was to make reading this huge campaign easier for those of us who just can't handle that on a tablet. And also, I didn't want to spend 2 kidneys and a liver buying a smashed up collector's edition of the box that's currently for sale on eBay.
No kidding.
So I mean, as much as I am a collector, and I will put out a pretty penny depending on certain things that I'm looking for. I am also one who uses the stuff for the primer. I'm not looking for a trophy. And
right.
as much as I wanted to have the Nightblow to use, woof, no, it's cost prohibitive to go out and get it just to use. But
oh yeah.
But the good news is I do have the book. The only downside, and this is true of any box sets that WotC has for print on demand, is unfortunately the maps are utterly useless. It's nice to kind of have them printed in the back just to view them, but you can't use them. So I mean, if I was running this at the table, I would have to spend a little bit of extra money to have the maps printed separately, which probably wouldn't be a bad idea in regards to this, because this type of campaign you would definitely want to have the maps and everything involved.
I would agree with you on that.
But since we're doing this on demand, and all of that is baked into the the VTT we're going to be using, it's not as necessary. It's just for these poor old eyes to be able to sit down at night and have to read this without going cross-eyed from staring at a screen for too long. So I've been very happy. This is my third box set that I've received from Drive-Thru. That's been a reprint from an old TSR / WotC product. The Nightblow, the Dark Sun box set, and the Planescape box set. Same situation. The maps are, you can't use them. They still come out wonderful and beautiful and colorful, but they're cut up and sectioned out. But as far as being able to have something physical to read for cheap. Or a lot less than what you would pay for the physical product on eBay or something, definitely well worth it, without question. So yeah. And
so for the record, I did pull it up on Drive-Thru. It's only available in standard color and either soft cover or hardcover.
Right, and I got the hardcover. So yeah, I mean, and like I said, it's not, this is nitpicking, because the pages being all wavy and a little bit wafer thin in certain areas because of the saturated colors on it. It's not like they're falling out. It's not like they're falling out, and most of the saturated colors are due to images themselves. So it's not like I can't read something because this highly saturated color image is on the opposite page. They are divided up properly. So
okay, that's cool.
So yeah,
That's cool.
Night Below. So
that's a good segue to tell our our listeners to go listen to. I think it was episode 3. What to expect when you're expecting a book in the mail. Yeah,
something like that. I don't know what we title our stuff. It's
I'm just guessing at this point. I don't know. Just go to Anchor and just scroll through. You'll find it.
Yeah, What to Expect is in the title somewhere. But yeah, it's literally.
I think it's What to Expect when you're expecting a book. I think is the official title.
We could look, but
why? Why should we?
As Bud would say, we can't be arsed.
Hey, nice.
So
all right, yeah, I think that wraps us up for special delivery little segment. Yep. Hopefully, everybody's got a new appreciation for some old books, some new stuff, something to go pique your interest and check out.
Okay. Well, I think we'll take a little breather here, and then when we come back, we'll just kind of, take this episode out to pasture and shoot it. Never mind.
No, we don't want to shoot it.
Some other,
put it in the can. That's it.
There you go. Put it in the can. That is perfect.
All right, listeners. Until next time.
Hey everyone, Scott here, and I just want to close out this episode by saying thank you so much to Andy for the fantastic conversation and for taking the time to sit down with us to talk all about zines. We're looking so very much to having him on again for more discussions real soon. Also, I want to give a big shout out and a show of gratitude to our listener Blake Ryan. He's the one who provided us with his rendition of Dr. Mitch's Titterpig intro song that you hear at the beginning of this episode. Also, I really hope he doesn't mind me taking a little bit of artistic license after he sent it to me. If you would like to send us your musical stylings of the Titterpig song, by all means, please do so. Send it to titterpigspod@gmail.com and we will showcase it in one of our episodes. We've recently received a new one from Dr. Mitch, and I can't wait to show it to you. I would like to add that both Keith and I have been entangled with the everyday trappings of our everyday real lives, and have fallen woefully behind in getting back and responding to all your emails and voicemails that you have sent to us. So, in addition to episode 6, we will be dropping a mini-sode highlighting those messages real soon. So please keep those coming to the Anchor app voicemail, or email us at titterpigspod@gmail.com, or better yet, attach a soundbite to that email to make it easy for us to add to the episode. Finally, I can't say this enough. Thank you, one and all, for listening to the Titterpigs podcast. This is an ongoing process for both Keith and I, and we appreciate every listen, every feedback, every email and message that we get, and we listen and read every single one of them. So thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, thank you, and keep on gaming, everyone. Take care.